Praise the Lord, everyone. So this is our day 31, and we are in John chapter 18. So it's very interesting chapter. This is a chapter where Jesus gets arrested and obviously he's betrayed. So there are various things that are described in this chapter, which you will find that similar content is given in other three gospels as well. But however, as we have been seeing since throughout our study, that the Gospel of John is very different from other three Gospels, and there are things that are mentioned in this Gospel you will not find in other Gospels. So there are certain things here as well, and we will be highlighting those because there's great learning in that. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. Let's go to John chapter 18. ये हम देख सकते हैं यूहन्ना का sorry for the Hindi. I saw Hindi, I started Hindi. So this is John chapter 18. Let's see in the heading, it says betrayal and arrest in Gethsemane. So what is it? Let's see. John chapter 18. When Jesus had spoken these words, which words? Now what we saw in John chapter 17 was Jesus prays for himself, for his disciples, and for all the believers who will be believing later. So he prayed, and when he had spoken these words, he went out with the disciples over the brook Kidron, where there was a garden which he and his disciples entered, and Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So what happened after Jesus prayed, he went out and he crossed, one brook was there, one small river was there, and he crossed that and he entered into a garden. The garden name is Gethsemane. So that's where he enters, and that's a place where Jesus used to meet his disciples very often. So this was a place known to Judas, who had, we saw in previous chapters that he actually goes to betray Jesus, who meets some people like high priest and all, and he plans that how he can get Jesus arrested, and he knew this place. So he is he's going to bring people to this same place because he know that Jesus visits, Jesus meets his disciples often in this garden. So he brings all the people who wants to arrest Jesus to this same garden. So that's what next verse says, third verse. Then Judas, having received a detachment of troops and officers from chief priests and Pharisees, came there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. So then how Judas came? Judas came with a detachment of troop. That means he came with few soldiers, then officers from chief priests and Pharisees, and like these people are usually Roman soldiers are there, temple guards are there, and some servants of high priest and like all the priests, they are there. They are the part of this group. So a large group came to arrest Jesus with lanterns, torches, and weapons. They came with weapons like sword and sticks and all those things. And so like all to arrest Jesus, not like, even if they come with so much of power, they should have been capturing someone who is very harmful, someone who is very rebellious, or he can cause violence. For such person, sending these number of people would be I mean, that would make sense. But they're coming to arrest Jesus, who never harmed anyone, who never hurt anyone in throughout his life, and they are sending such big army to catch Jesus, to arrest Jesus. So what happens? Let's see. Fourth verse. Jesus, therefore, knowing all these things that he would that would come upon him, went forward and said to them, "Whom are you seeking?" They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." So Jesus, when he saw these people coming towards him, Jesus knew what is going to happen. So still Jesus goes and Jesus asks them a question, "Whom are you seeking?" So they say, "Jesus of Nazareth. We are looking for Jesus of Nazareth." So Jesus gives them an answer. Jesus said to them, "I am he." And Judas, who betrayed him, was also stood with them. Now, when he said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Now, I just want you to imagine this scene, what happened exactly. Jesus asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" They say, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus says, "I am he." Now, just one correction here. The word I am, he, these are three words, but in original Greek text, you will just find two words, that is I am. The he word is not there. Even if you see here, even in your Bible, you can see this word he is in italic font. So wherever you see some line or words written in italic font, those words were added to make statement grammatically correct or to match with the context, which were necessary in certain cases, but in certain cases they actually messed up the meaning uh, or reference to the Old Testament. Like if you read it, I am he, you will be like, okay, that's a normal statement. But if you remove the he from that, you will see I am, and this is the same statement. This is the same statement only, I'd say. The same statement made by God in Old Testament. If you go to let's go to Genesis, Exodus chapter 3 and verse 14. Now, giving a little context about Exodus chapter 3, this is the chapter where God meets Moses in a burning bush. So this is where Moses has an encounter with God for the first time, and he sees that the bush is burning, but the bush is not consumed, like bush is as it is, and there is fire around it. So how come this is possible? So Moses goes, curiosity is there in him, and he curiously moves further and just want to see. He he just want to see what is happening, like how is this possible that this bush is not burned but there is all fire all around him. So when he starts going there, God starts speaking to him. God says, remove your sandal from your foot, because the ground that you're standing is holy, because it's the presence of God is there. So now these things are not necessary in Old Testament, sorry, New Testament, that you need to remove your for footwear and all that, because we are made holy by the blood of Jesus, right? We are made the temple of God. So he lives inside of us. So that was not the case in Old Testament. So God starts speaking to Moses. And when he has a conversation, God tells him that you need to go and rescue the my people from Egypt. And God is giving him a mission. Now Moses has a question. He says, if I go to my people, now Moses, if you all know, Moses was raised in Pharaoh's house. Pharaoh is king of Egypt, and who is ultimately uh, harassing the Israeli people who are working as slaves in Egypt. And Pharaoh is the man who is harassing them. And Moses was raised by this same Pharaoh's sister in her palace. So now certain things happen and Moses had to run from there, and Moses is on the run for 40 years. He is staying away, and now God visits him. God says, I want you to go and rescue these people. So Moses says, okay, I'll go, but what should I tell them? Who has sent me? I need to tell them a name, that this God has sent me. So what name I should tell them? So God says, if you go to 14th verse, and God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. So this is the name God tells Moses, that my name is I am. So this is the same name Jesus says, I am. And when he says that, the power of God literally hits this entire army and they fall on the ground. There is no possible explanation how can an army of like hundreds of people fall at the same time, unless there is some powerful force hitting them and they are falling to the ground. That's what happens. So is you can see that Jesus is literally using his Father's words. He's not using anyone of his own. So when he says that, they fall to the ground. And now this should have been a confirmation for them that this man is not a normal man. We shouldn't be messing with him. He is the Son of God. So signs and wonders are following Jesus everywhere he's going. So when he says I am, he's literally using his Father's words, and they fall to the ground. But what happens, they still are not convinced. So they again they are in same mindset to arrest Jesus of Nazareth. So Jesus answers them. Jesus asks them again, whom are you seeking? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. Therefore, if you seek me, let these go their way. So Jesus is saying, I told you already, I am he. So let these go away. These means he's talking about his disciple. He's saying, you can take me, but let them go away. So why Jesus said that? Next verse says Jesus said that so that the scripture, what he said, should be fulfilled, that not one of those is lost. That means not one of those is dying without fulfilling the will of God for their life. So here you can see 9th verse, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spoke, of those whom you gave me, I have lost none. So this is the statement made by Jesus himself in previous chapter, in John chapter 17, when Jesus is praying for a disciple. Jesus says this same line. He says, "Of those whom you gave me, um, I have lost none. Nobody is lost." That means nobody is died without fulfilling the will of God for their life. So what happens after that? 10th verse, then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck to the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into the sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which my father has given me?" So what happens here is, when that uh, one person is going to arrest Jesus, so what Peter does, Peter draws his sword and he strikes that servant's ear. So he cuts his ear. So Jesus, when he sees that, Jesus says, put your sword back into sheath." He says, "Shall I not drink the cup which my father has given me?" So this is still, I won't say it's not a complete account of this incident. There are other gospels you might find that Jesus actually went and touches the servant's ear and he heals him. He, literally restores his ear. He gives him a new ear. So this thing is given in other gospels. I don't know in which gospel it is, but this account of other, like, there are other incidents also. But I said we will find all these things piece by piece in all four gospels. So for now we are just seeing Gospel of John. That's why that's all I can say. So Jesus is saying, shall I not drink the cup which my father has given me? That means this work which father has given me, this purpose for which I came from or came for, I should be doing this purpose regardless of what is happening. So Jesus in a way rebukes Peter and says, "Get back, don't do anything like this. I'm surrendering myself." So what happened in 12th verse, then the detachment of troops and the captain and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and bound him, and they led him away to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. Now, what happened? They arrest Jesus, but instead of taking him to the high priest Caiaphas, they send him to the Annas. Annas is the previous high priest, who was the father-in-law of current high priest. Current high priest is Caiaphas. Caiaphas was the person who we saw, I think, in John chapter 11 or 12, when Lazarus is resurrected. Uh, People start believing in Jesus as Messiah, so they see a potential threat to their tradition, to their nation. So they are discussing what should we do about this man. So this Caiaphas, this is the high priest. He says, "Why are we discussing so much? Isn't it obvious that one man should die instead of entire nation dying, entire nation getting destroyed by Romans?" So in a way, that year he prophesied that Jesus will die for the Israel. Instead of Israel, he will die. So that was a prophecy he made unknowingly, but being a high priest, he has a position. So whatever he spoke, it happened. And Jesus was that it was his idea that Jesus should be crucified. 14th verse. Now it was Caiaphas who advised the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. I think the verse is there. Where is it? No, it's a footnote. But yeah, I think it's somewhere in John chapter 12, where people actually start believing in Jesus, and they didn't want that to happen. Let me get that verse for you. John. Yeah, this is John chapter 11 verse 49 and 50. You can read till 52. John 11 verse 49 to 52. This is where you can see the Caiaphas prophesied that Jesus would die, and this is what is been happening now. So let me share my screen. We'll continue. So when he is brought before Annas, what happens? We'll see 15th verse. And Simon Peter followed Jesus and so did another disciple. Now that disciple was known to high priest and went with Jesus into the courtyard to the high priest. So this we can see that there was a disciple who went with Jesus, who went behind Jesus, Simon Peter and this disciples, who was known to high priest. He had he was known to high priest. So he and this other, like Simon Peter, both of them followed when they arrested Jesus. So this disciple, since he was known to high priest, he could enter inside, but Peter did not enter inside. He was outside. So when he was outside, this other disciple, he went in and he actually, you can see that he made a request for Peter's entry so that he should be allowed inside. So he was allowed inside, and you can see here in 16 verse, but Peter stood at the door outside. Then the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to her who kept the door and brought Peter in. That means then other disciples who was inside, he went and he spoke to the who kept the door. That means there was a girl there who would permit people to come in. So he spoke to her saying, let him come inside. So Peter also came in, but there is one conversation. Then the servant girl who kept the door said to Peter, you are not also one of this man's disciples, are you? So somewhere she had seen Peter with Jesus before. So she asked him, are you not also one of his disciples? So she asked a question to Peter. Peter says, I'm not. So he denies that he is associated with Jesus. That's the first denial. And we have seen Jesus prophesied that Peter will deny Jesus 3 times before the rooster crows. Right? 18th verse. Now the servants and officers who had made a fire of coals stood there, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves. And Peter stood with them and warmed himself. So Peter is there, warming himself because it is cold, and he's standing with other servants, and this girl is also there. 19th verse. The high priest then asked Jesus about the disciples and his doctrine. Jesus answered him, Jesus answered him, I spoke openly to the world. I always taught in synagogues and in the temple where the Jews always meet, and in secret I have said nothing. So it's a kind of conversation happening here. So he asked Jesus, what is your teaching? What is your doctrine? So Jesus is explaining him something, but we'll see this when we meet next. So the magic word for this video is sword, SWORD, and we will meet next. Please read this, bring your questions, and you can read other gospels also about this arrest of Jesus, and you can bring more questions on that as well. And we'll see what we can get to learn more next time. So till then, keep growing in the Lord.